Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
It is number 6:17, and we are calling to order a meeting of the joint boards of the Westminster School Board and the Wyndham Northeast Unified Union Elementary School. So with that note, we will do as we often do, introductions of who's here. So let's start with the people on my furthest right and do that, and then we will do the folks who are on the line. So that does mean you.
Excellent. My name is Ricky Adams. I'm our tech director.
Liz Hardy, principal, Westminster Center School.
Angela Cartier, principal at Grafton Elementary School.
I'm Jack Fryer, and I share the WNUESD on behalf of Grafton.
I'm on the same committee on behalf of Athens.
And your name
It's
is?
Lynn, excuse me.
I'm Cheryl Charles. I chair the Westminster School Board.
Andy House, superintendent of schools.
Team PLC, Westminster School Board.
All right, so now we're going to start, and I'll call names because that's probably the easiest to do. Karen, why don't you go first?
Okay, Karen Blanchard, Westminster School Board.
All right, sliding over, Charlie.
Hi, I'm Charlie Hutchison, Westminster School Board.
Krista, I think you're up next.
Krista Gay from Athens.
All right, and did I see Elise on there at some point? And I really can't see that far away. Elise, say hi to the folks.
She's the phone.
Elise is bashful and not talking, but
a
she's here, I know that.
Right.
So with,
Hi, can you hear me?
I can now, thank you. We
Okay,
can.
it wasn't taking the mute. It's Elise Manning Sterling from Westminster for the WNUESD board.
Awesome.
Good evening,
Thank
everyone.
you. We're on to 3, which is adjustments to the agendas. I heard some suggestions for adjustments. Lynn, what do we have so far?
We would like to reverse number 6 and 7.
All right, so we'll put resignations after 7. All right, and is there any others that we need to make?
I think if we could add, just so we're keeping it note, because I'm just reading it, it says resignations. We do have appointments also.
So modify the resignation and appointments.
And then I also have a request from a teacher for a non-paid day off. So
All right.
if we could add that somewhere in there, that would be
So
helpful.
resignations, appointments, and personnel matters.
Exactly.
I will phrase that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so with that noted without objection, I'm seeing one. So we have made those adjustments. We are on to communications and public comments. Is there a non-school board member who has a view on something that they would like to speak on? I'm hearing deafening silence in that regard. Ricky, do we have anybody waving their hand that I can't see? All right, so with that, let's move on to reports, which are principal reports. We're having this meeting in part because I knew my principals had reports.
Yeah,
So, go for it.
absolutely. Just to give an enrollment update, Westminster has 155 students, 1 VTVLC student, and 2 students, actually, that 1 student who is we recently, I'm sorry, I was just, yes, so that's what we're at. All right.
And at Grafton Elementary School, we currently have 39 students, 1 VTVLC student, 7 students who are homeschooling, and 3 students at the grammar school this year. And then I wanted to just note that at the end of this year, we're losing 3 students to Chester and 4 students to the middle school. and we'll be welcoming 3 kindergarten students and 3 students from Chester, and our projected enrollment for next year is 37.
All right. Andy, I'm wondering if at some point, perhaps at the next meeting, we might send out an open invitation to those folks who are homeschooling, both out of concern about whether we're meeting their needs. If they're homeschooling, the guess is maybe not, and to see what we can do to meet those needs by encouraging attendance at the public school. I would hope we would send out personal invitations, and you can send one, I can send one, but I just think it's important to explore why such a high percentage of folks are not in the system. All right.
So we're going to move on and share some family engagement activities that we have planned for this spring.
Okay.
So the parent-teacher organization for Westminster team will hold a beautification morning on Saturday, May 14th at 10 o'clock. So that's to kind of re-landscape this front garden. We're using funds from the Farm to School grant to purchase perennials and to have some of the area dug out to freshen it up a bit. We'll also be holding an open house on Tuesday, May 17th from 6 to 7 o'clock, and we'll also release our virtual spring concert that night. Our 6th grade success night will be held on Monday, June 13th at 6 o'clock. This will be held outside in our garden like it was last year. It was just such a nice event that we wanted to remain outside.
And at Grafton Elementary School on May 4th, next Wednesday, our students and staff will beautify our grounds as part of our Green Up Day efforts. And in collaboration with our PTO and our Farm to School grant, we're going to plant flowers, a tea garden, and a pumpkin patch. And we're going to host a spring concert in person in the Grafton Elementary School cafeteria on May 19th. And then we are going to host our chili cook-off again on Friday, June 3rd from 5 to 7. And there's going to be a link in our newsletter to sign up. We've reduced the price to enter your chili to $10 rather than it being $20 like before. And then our 6th grade success night is the same as Westminster's on Monday, June 13th.
Earlier in the winter, we talked a lot about the MAP assessment that is held 3 times a year. We do have scores that we can report. Again, I just want to reiterate that this is one data point. This is the student's one moment. It is obviously not the whole child. We do look at growth patterns to identify need for intervention. We look at growth patterns to support teachers and to further learning opportunities for really students and teachers and staff. So for Westminster, between the English, the ELA test, which is a reading, from the fall to winter, the growth actually was in the negative, was a negative 5% growth. In math from fall to winter, the growth was up 3%. So the average growth compared to like the average, like they're growing, kids are growing, but they were down 5% of the rate that was expected in ELA, and then up 3% for math.
Just because we get a small sample size, you feel there's some issues?
No, I think it could be a billion different assessment. I am more interested in watching it over time and watching specific students. So we went in and looked at specific student scores and then talked about what is that. This is one data point. How does this reflect to how you see the student performing in class, on other assessments that we give, and kind of looking at the child as a whole child and how can we support them? Are we supporting them? Are we not? Do we need to change things up? We've been doing this intervention. Does that make sense? Do we need to change things? Those are the kind of discussions we have as staff.
I also think there's, the test was initially taken right at the beginning of the year, and then you really learned a lot more about students. And last year, students didn't get as much as they would have, and so teachers are probably backfilling some of that, and so some of their growth isn't as indicative on this test because it's a grade level based assessment. So they might, like a 4th grader might have been doing work that they need from 3rd grade skills, but that's not necessarily going to show up on the test.
Yeah, and I think we're taking a look at it SU wide, and I thought we would see a trend, you know, across the SU, and we're not. We're seeing what I would call almost picket fences, you know?
Yeah.
So like, you would think all grades were going down or all third grades went up, but it's across the SU,
Yeah.
it's real, you know, ups and downs, and so we want to really look at that to try and understand that kind of what Walt was saying.
And there's been a big shift in how we're teaching in the past 2 years. Teachers are moving to a workshop model in both reading and math, which whenever you introduce something new, you're going to see a dip in some way.
All right.
Or the rise, right?
Right,
And
either
so you
one,
want to understand
yeah.
it too, and I think that's because then we can make those fine-tune adjustments as we go into next year, really.
Let me just say to Karen and to Krista and Charlie and to Lisa and whoever else is there.
Hardy's here.
Is Hardy there?
Yes.
Oh, hi, Hardy. Hardy Merrill's joined us from, a member from Grafton. Say hi, folks, if you wouldn't mind.
Hi.
That was very long-winded. No, I'm just gonna ask you all, because the sun is in my eyes, I can barely see the screen. If you want to ask a question, just ask the question. Don't just stand in the ceremony or raise your hand, because I can barely see your screen. So if anybody wants to hop in and hit this, please do.
I actually have another question. So past the MAPS testing, is there a certain set of assessments kids get after the MAPS? So like to dig a little bit deeper into what the actual, if a kid had a dip or is in some level of concern with ELA or math, is there a specific diagnostic set of assessments that you give them?
We don't have that right now.
In the past, we had not, as an SU, gone that next level.
Okay.
Something we're looking at is, yeah, how do we parse out that information?
Okay.
Great question.
I think we might hear from Angela, and then I will have some questions.
Yeah. So also reporting on the same assessment in ELA from the fall to the winter. Overall, Grafton students went down 9%, and then went down 10% in math. But when I look at this, the you know, if you're looking here over my shoulder, Jack, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade went up. But the majority of the dip downward was in 1st grade. But if you think about their educational experience thus far, that's not surprising, right? So that, some of my 1st graders went down 49%, right? So that brought down the average, right? So, but as they got older, they went up more. So their growth was more. So that's not very surprising, but that's the reality.
Do you have questions about this specifically, or do you want us to continue more?
If we could, yeah, you've spoken about the growth part of the reporting back. I know there's also a comparison to the universe of
Like the
students
national
in the nation.
achievement,
Right,
yeah.
right. To show how our kids compare in terms of proficiency in those areas, in both math and the language arts areas. And I think I have an observation that is that whereas we as a community can be concerned about this, I don't want us to overreact, because it's such a complex set of things that have been going on for our children, for our community's children in the last 2 years. And their social and emotional skills are all in the mix with this, with academic. One thing I wouldn't want us to see is to overemphasize trying to get the basics in the language arts and math and forget their desperate need to learn how to get along with one another and to collaborate and to problem solve and to even have fun, to bring some joy to learning. So I would just tell our community not to overreact. We need time to work with this and to support the teachers, the support staff, and everyone else. But it's of concern, and it's important
And
to
I
know.
think, is this the third year we've done math? I think this is the third year. You know, so the way that the test is there's almost 50 questions in ELA and math. That's kind of a lot. And how it's designed is just that the kids, correct me, they get half of them. They're supposed to get half of them incorrect, right? In order to find their middle.
Well, it's a constantly
So-
adjusting test.
I did map testing as a student. Am I the only one here that did that? No, like I had to take it as a student. I was just wondering, am I the only board member that had to do map or standardized testing as a student?
This is
Oh.
why you add value in so many ways.
One of the
Krista.
many
Thank you for
reasons,
this.
yeah.
But I did map testing in high school, and the way it worked when I was there is it's on a computer still, and like based upon how you answer, it either like increases or decreases in difficulty. And so as Ms. Cartier was just saying, like you, based upon how you answer, the questions adjust. And so it does go up, and then down. And you'll know you missed a question when all of a sudden it gets substantially easier. So that's how it works.
Permit me to observe that the former student of the school system still refers to the principal as Miss Cartier. I'm kind of impressed by that. Are there any other questions among folks? I just have.
I can talk about assessment all day, sorry. But I said I can talk about assessment all day. I do think it does speak to the need though towards a deeper set of assessments afterwards. So that, because I don't really trust that I think it's good to give an overall picture of like where are kids and who are our kids of concern. But I think then you really need to go a little bit deeper and have some deeper assessments to say which area are we really concerned about so that then we know where to target our instruction.
And those are the conversations we've had and to know that we need to have that piece.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I've had in my mind, and I think it's something that we need to tease out as we get into next year, is, you do a type of standardized assessment for a bunch of years to see, is it the right assessment? Is it giving us the right information? And that's not to say we want a test that's just going to give us kids that are doing well. We want a test that is teacher user-friendly, that teachers can use and use the data. And knowing that we had the pandemic year, is to say like, okay, we're not going to toss it out right now, and maybe we need to go one more year with maps, and maybe we need to look at, are there other, because there's so many other assessment pieces out there. And one of the things maps has is like, when it first came out, you got the suite of all those little subtests. Now you purchase all those little subtests, and so it becomes very, very expensive quickly. So.
Well, in some grades we're getting, was it just like, not an experiment, but a type of pilot? Some got a Dibbles assessment too, is that actually?
So we did Dibbles.
Dibbles, acronym alert.
Dibbles is, I don't even know if it's math. It probably is. Okay.
Dynamic indicator of early literacy skills.
Thank you.
So it's basically, it's literacy.
Yeah, so,
Thank
but
you. There we
it's
go.
a pretty
Yeah.
quick test, and we introduced it this year. It did grades 1 through 4?
Yeah, 4.
1 through 4, or K through 4, pardon me. So, and that was part of our early screening of doing and Student Services actually supported that this year for all students, and we'll continue that on with our work with the Stern Center. So,
I will share that I've heard some about this from parents. And I didn't have the context, so I mumbled something and thought I'd find out what was going on. My concern is that missing, between remote instruction, for little kids and all the other things that have occurred during the pandemic, is whether or not we have, how big is the hole that was created, and how heroic must measures be to fix it, and what is a reasonable timeline
Address that. We are looking at some real lofty goals of where we're not going to cut any slack. Where we're looking at goals is that 100% of our students will be proficient in math and reading. We're not going to settle for 90%. We're not going to settle for 80%. So we're shooting for 100%. And we're putting some targets in place so that we can get there. And part of that also means looking at our academic day and how we are offering our instruction and where do we need to do intervention. We're looking at increasing the supports that we can provide for teachers. We've done our summer programming and whatnot, and that's great, but to get a student to come for 5 weeks, it's really hard. I mean, and stuff. So really, where we're looking at putting a lot of focus is how can we work to give teachers more tools and to better their instruction to work with kids that we have, because we can't extend the day, we can't make it longer, it's hard to do that. And so we know we have them for that finite amount of time, so how can we really capitalize that time?
I would
Can I,
just say.
can I interrupt just for a moment? Can you hear me? Jack, you allowed us to jump right in.
No, that's, I'm encouraging it, in fact.
Anyway, what I wanted to say, first of all, is, as we move forward with the idea of, what I call earth-based learning or nature learning that is on the table, I'm curious, are there assessments for adjustment for kids? I mean, I feel like there's a relationship between learning and how they're doing. You know what I mean? And so I don't know the ins and outs here yet. And I understand that it's about math and language, but as we know, I mean, in our own experience, learning is a whole person experience. And so I'm trying to figure out how to help teachers, make, people, the students feel engaged in a way. And so I'm asking this question: when you're talking about these, tests and getting them to such and such a level, I guess my question really is about attitude development and excitement and how that gets generated in the curriculum and our approach to it.
Karen, we try to take the approach that it's all about sitting in your desk and you've got to have your feet flat on the floor, your hands folded, and
well, I
3 hours all day long. And no, I mean, in all seriousness, I think, we try to do a really great job. Our focus a lot this year has been around social emotional learning, which is what you're really talking about. Like, how do we address the mental health and well-being of our students? Because if they're not ready to learn, they're not going to learn.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I'm there with you. So thank you very much. That's really what I wanted to look her more about. Thank you.
Well, Westminster has Grafton as well done. You've all adopted responsive classroom.
Nice.
Which is like fully based on that premise.
I have a thought. I have a thought too.
Go ahead.
So if I could jump in. It'd be interesting to see the data that Liz described to us earlier, but it really seems like this is a cohort issue, not a general issue. If you say that like the 4th and 5th graders actually had large increases, but it was the younger kids that had the dips, then, as you said, it makes perfect sense that they would have done, so that we don't have an across-the-board problem here. We have a problem with the kids who have had their whole entry into school completely messed up by the pandemic. And so it seems that that's where the intervention needs to be mostly, I would think, before we get too upset about the overall numbers.
I do have concerns about the early literacy curriculum because it's not evidence-based, which is gonna have issues when it comes to Act 173 in terms of providing interventions for students. Sorry, I don't mean to cause controversy.
That's pretty mild stuff. Help you with controversy, show interest in that.
But I think it's something that I think has been brought to the attention of the district. And I'm hopeful they'll be looking into a way to shore up the phonemic and phonological components of early literacy.
I'm trying to find the words to be politically correct, and I know I don't always need to be, especially with this board. We're well aware of the deficits and taking a look at what we can do, you know, programmatically, but also just, you know, making sure, again, the teachers have the instructional ability to be able to identify and to know what tool to use, right? Because that's, if we can go out and buy a whole nice new set of, you know, of tools, but if you don't know
Right.
which hammer to grab, you could pick up a sledgehammer when you need a ball peen hammer, right? And so we want to make sure we're using the right tools, and so we've really talked about that and looked at that, and it's one of the things I'm excited about next year, you know, with new folks coming on and where that's going to allow us to kind of go. But
one more just to make it really unpleasant. I appreciate that we want to have as a goal getting here 100%. With that having been said, the question becomes, at what point that's going to happen? Not in terms of, you know, what I'm really thinking is I'd love to have 100%, but what I'm really concerned about is that we have at least as well as we have always had for all the kids that were, particularly the young kids who were not necessarily computer literate when they're 6, and the folks, the parents that maybe don't work in the IT industry and really weren't necessarily able to help their kids with these tools, either because they were working or they just know how to use them themselves, or they lived on top of Athens Mountain or something. So, you know, how long do you think it will take to recover this for these kids? That's I just, you know, we have people that voted out of the space are going to be this, you know, as I said, I really do believe that a number of the folks who are homeschooling are doing so out of concern about this stuff. So I'm trying to.
I mean, I wish I could give you a date and
Well, I'm just thinking, do we have a target, 3 years, 2, 6?
Well, I honestly think it's going to almost come down to the individual student on what their recovery is, because some kids maybe are behind, but they had a lot of support when they weren't in school.
Right.
So their recovery is going to be a lot quicker. Other kids suffered a lot of trauma, and so they're behind, and we've got to do that backfilling of that well-being and get them up to speed so that they can make that quicker gains. I suspect we will see quicker gains in, you know, in those students who had traditional schooling, you know, the 3rd to 4th grade, the 5th grade, where we tend to see more of the picket fencing and the downward trending is at our transitional grades. So yes, our K through 2. But unfortunately, where I'm looking is I see preschoolers having just as much. So it's not just our current students. We've got kids coming to us who have learning gaps. You know? So that's where my hope is that in the next 2 to 3 years, we can really get in there and do some deep work with teachers and instructional practices and really change. But that's the problem in education. We're building the plane while we're flying the plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one's ever taught through a pandemic before.
I mean, we can't stop, and if I can take all my teachers for a year and have no kids and really teach them pedagogy and all that stuff, and then say, come on back, you know, but I you know, if you want, like, where am I hopeful to see some real, you can see some real firm changes is into a year. Yeah.
Okay, because that's at least something where we can visit every several months and say, this is where we are, 6 months out into the 3 years, this is where we hope to be, this is where we are, and just sort of do that sort of twice a year for the next couple.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's why I wanted to bring up just where we're kind of putting our goal is we're not lowering the bar just because kids lost learning. We've got to build the scaffolding to get the kids up to the bar, right? And we can't settle for less. Our kids deserve that.
Then I would just say, put ag in the calendar.
Oh, no. I just had a follow-up question. Has there ever been a time when there was like 100% proficiency rate based upon standardized testing or the math testing? Because like I did the kneecaps and I think I'm an academically successful person, and every single year I got needs improvement on every single one of my kneecaps. And so I'm just wondering if that is even a realistic goal to get 100%.
Is it realistic? In I guess it depends, Krista, how you're measuring realism, because I'd be telling a parent, I'm sorry, your kid, we're already considering them to be part of the 10% that's not going to make it. And so I believe that every child can learn.
Yeah, totally.
Can show growth and their own growth. And but if we don't set the bar at perfection, then we're going to shoot for lower. And I really believe we have to shoot as high as we can. You know, my sister-in-law, like you, did not do well on standardized testing. And she's a professor at Stanford. So, you know, I mean, so I don't think standardized tests tell the whole story. They tell a small portion of a student.
On a certain day.
On a given day, they had good breakfast and they had a good night's sleep and all that stuff. But again, I think it's wanting to set setting the tone that we are not just coming back to normal. We're not going to settle for less. We are going to keep the pedal on the metal, you know, push. And keep going. So
that actually
thanks for that clarification.
That actually brings up the thing about standardized tests and why they're kind of imprecise, to say the least, metric. 7 years ago when Johanna Harpster was our superintendent, there was a great deal of concern about this, and we did an experiment. On testing day, we had flags up, we had banners all over the school, high school, we had a band playing, and we had a 20% improvement that year in test scores, wall to wall, which tells you just how much, you know, motivation can affect the test. And that's why when I hear 3% shift, that's within the margin of error. It's the 54% stuff that scares me to death.
And I think it's the stuff they're doing every day in class that's motivating. The test isn't motivating.
Right.
Yeah.
For the public, let me just say, I love this conversation. That's what it's all about. We're really talking about the quality of learning experiences for our children and our goals and aspirations for them. And so that's really where my heart is in terms of the school board responsibility. Yes, we have other responsibilities, but I really appreciate this and the time we're spending on it tonight. Yeah. Well, the other comment I wanted to add around this, though, is not to forget those children who are already highly proficient and are not showing growth. And this leads again to the challenge for every teacher in every classroom. So I want us to be alert to the whole range.
Thank you.
With that said, and it being 7 o'clock or close to it, and being, you know, having a commitment to try to close the doors at 8.
Let's hear from, they haven't finished their
No,
work.
well, you keep going.
I did want to mention kindergarten registration. So WCS is expecting 30 kindergartners in the fall, but to put that in perspective, that's based off of a spreadsheet that we keep about projected enrollment. Like this year, we were expecting 31 kindergartners, and we have 24 kindergartners. So we never get really everyone that's on our list, but we're expecting 30. We'll hold 2 kindergarten play nights, one next Thursday, May 5th from 5:30 to 6:30, and another one May 24th from 5:30 to 6:30. These nights will allow families to come into the classrooms, meet our kindergarten teachers, play, and we provide pizza for dinner.
We're very appreciative of that as an incoming kindergarten parent.
Yeah,
It really sounds fun. The kids
Yeah.
are safe.
it's very low key, so kids can just check things out and parents get a chance to just see, put names with faces and get familiar with the area.
And Grafton just had our kindergarten play night on Monday night. And families came, just our 3 students came. And my administrative assistant was there, my kindergarten teacher who's going to Westminster, and my nurse. And the families all had pizza and ice cream sandwiches, and they got to play, and they got some balloons and a little bag of goodies. Got to meet their new friends, so it was great. And then I just had an update, Jim, are you over there?
He's over there.
On our boiler. So Jim, do you wanna come on over? Come on.
I'm here for backup, Angela.
So, you're not.
Got a seat at the table here.
You're-
Come
you're
on.
gonna-
Come on, Jim.
Come on,
No
Jim.
point, no
Jim,
point.
come on, you-
I'm right here, I'm right
Get a
here.
seat at the table.
Yeah, no,
You don't have to sit at the kids' table anymore.
I want to sit at the kids' table.
Yeah.
So, Jim and Gary and I met just to talk about the boiler, and so you wanted a recommendation.
Yep.
And so our recommendation, we think that we can buy some more time with that boiler, before it needs to be completely overhauled and replaced. That's Jim's recommendation as well as Gary's. And looking at the repairs that were just done, it doesn't seem like it was that major. So,
Wow.
Jim, do you wanna?
You covered all the points that I would have. It looks awful from the outside,
It does.
but the Peerless is a lifetime boiler, they call it. The exhaust stack got knocked off for whatever reason, hence the fumage. The damage was really very minute. There was one little pipe because an actuator malfunctioned. So you're not in imminent danger of failure or loss of heat in the structure.
What kind of lifetime are you expecting for this lifetime?
I mean, I've got the same boiler in my house. They tell me it's a 50-year boiler.
And that thing's been in there 30, right?
Oh, gosh, I don't remember when that was built, 86 or something?
That's 40 years. The 80s are like 40 years now.
My issue simply is this. We're separating these schools.
Yep.
A school district of 30, 40 kids. This is very different than a school district of 300 kids. And amortizing the cost of this across 300 kids, how we can make it work. Amortizing this across 30 kids, start talking about closing buildings. And so I'm being very blunt about this. This is one of the reasons why the concern is what it is I don't want to tell Athens and Grafton that they've got a, $70,000 replacement bill or $60,000 replacement bill when we already have one of the higher cost per pupil rates in the state. That starts to break us. And, replacing this now when I can afford it, as opposed to replacing it later when I can't, is a real big deal to me.
Right, and I'm not advocating for putting it off or anything, Jack. What I'm saying is that it's not imminent. In other words, we don't have to race to get it done by the heating season, let's say, or something, but.
I guess I'm suggesting that if we get it done by July, it's a lot easier to get it done than it will be to get it done in September 2 years from now.
Yes.
And I'm begging you all to bear that in mind.
So if we wanted to get it replaced now, the money comes from where? Our surplus in our budget right now?
whether it comes from that, from ESSER, the issue is you need a plan. I know these, capital stuff requires normally long-term measured thinking. But we're in a situation where I've got some deadlines, and we've got two pools. We've got the body of the buildings of the district, and we have ESSER, and that's a thing where we can do something. I'm telling you that 4 years from now, when the ESSER money's gone, the district's a one-fifth the size it is. I've got a very different calculation on this, and I'm trying to figure out. One time I can do something, one time we make some hard life choices, and that's the reason why I'm just asking you to bear this in mind. It is April, July 1 is coming. And I want, if we're not going to do it, we're kind of making a decision that we're maybe looking at closing the school and when the boiler goes out, as opposed to fixing it when I can.
Right, and all I'm telling you is that that notwithstanding.
Well, that's the big issue.
Okay, and that's fine. That boiler, should you decide so, I think would go you a little while longer. Should you decide to go with that route?
This is one of these where, I wouldn't mind having an ex parte with people like Hardy who know about capital budgets because he does it for Grafton. This is not my wheelhouse, but it is my worry. So what I would like you to do is think about that and come back to the next meeting and see if that makes any
We do have a replacement option that has been submitted.
I'd like us to look at that at our next meeting if we might. People may decide like my Westminster colleagues may say, why should we be stuck with this bill? And they may not want to do that, but I'd like to at least have the conversation. Oh, that was fun.
Right out of the room.
So last board meeting, a month ago, I brought those proposals. You want to just bring those again?
Yeah, I think part of what we were looking for tonight was, if we did one of them, what would be the recommended? There were two, were there not?
There were three.
Three.
But at varying levels of replacement.
Right.
Right.
So the VHV one was probably the most comprehensive of it.
Yeah.
That is one brand new 483,000 BTU oil-fired boiler, 2 new redundant system pumps, 1 new air dirt separator, 1 new expansion tank, new oil distribution piping, and new distribution piping as required. So that's basically the soup to nuts replacement. That total was $38,978. For all of them.
389,000?
What's that?
389,000?
38,000.
38,000.
978.
300, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, that was a little one. So that one's probably the most comprehensive replacement estimate that you have.
And
that's everything out in all.
That's a lot better than the 70 that was being kicked where all this started, so.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, that helps.
Surplus then.
Yeah.
You commented about if we went ahead and did that now, what would Westminster think about having to buy into that? Is there any way that we can have it done and it be worked out that it's only AFRAP that pays for it?
If we do that, then we're back to, might as well just do it when the district is separate. you know, we've happily picked up a couple years of Westminster's bond during this period, even though it's only been proportional, and some of the other renovations here. My concern was thinking this was going to be a 70,000 plus kind of thing, that, you know, $70,000 across, 30 kids starts to look a little rough. That's all.
So, I know you had a question, I'd say, I will, I don't know if I can get to it tomorrow, but I can get to it by Monday, seeing if we can get this written as a strategy in ESSER, and if ESSER will cover it, because HVAC and heating, and we've gotten, you know, a circuit breaker repaired at the high school. You know, so I think getting a boiler fixed so that kids have heat and are safe, theoretically would kind of, in my mind.
Let's explore this, because like
So
I said,
I have been busy, these guys have been working on their own without me, but I appreciate that, but I think
I
think we can find that strategy very.
And I may do some informal polling of colleagues one-on-one, just to get a sense. This feels like a subject where I need some detailed input. And folks that know what
I guess what I'm thinking is, for me, what was holding us up, Jack, was the lease. We've gotten that taken care of. So we should be able to move forward now with using ESSER funds on capital projects at Grafton. So it'll just be a matter of me trying to figure out, is it 1, 2, or 3?
I mean, that's like I said, just, you know, I'm looking for ways to make sure that that little building with those kids in it.
It's a little engine that good.
That's what I'm thinking. Okay. We've interrupted this presentation, sorry.
I'm done.
Just go ahead.
Okay, being painfully sensitive that we've killed a half of our time. Not that this hasn't been great and really important stuff, because I don't want it to sound like anything but that. Right? I know we've got other agenda items and I want to get on. Moving on to them. What do we got next? We are
going to these.
Okay. I'm going to suggest that the ESSER update be sort of folded into the congressionally directed funding. So why don't we do the review and approve policies item, if that's acceptable to everyone. The bulk of the people in the room were there when the SU went through these, but I just would say that we are technically moving to have these posted for the required 10 days. This is not a motion this is, you know, somebody calls for first reading, but it's just to get these posted so that they're publicly available like you do with laws. And I'm wondering who might want to just briefly characterize this alphabet soup of policies without having to read them all.
Yeah, let me, so, the first one, which is coded B3, is a policy about, and these are all required policies. It's about an alcohol and drug-free workplace. Basically says that we're not going to allow that in our workplace. The second one is B4, which is about drug and alcohol testing for transportation employees. And there's a typo in there that we would fix in the bottom line. But other than that, it just said that's part of the Omnibus Transportation Employee Testing Act of 1991, so it's a requirement of that. B8 is electronic communications between employees and students, and just kind of governs how that will happen, you know, as far as, especially with a lot of social media, gives a little, you know, support there. C1 is on retention of how we will hold on to educational records. that we will not just throw them away type of stuff, and under FERPA, and use all FERPA laws and whatnot. C3 is about transportation, and that is basically just says that we will provide transportation, to students, and that we may choose to transport on the public road. So it's just covering that piece from the legalities. C4 is about English language learners. And again, this is not about curriculum that we teach, but that we will provide equal supports for students so that they can access their education. C5 is firearms and weapons, and this has to do with the Federal Gun-Free Schools Act of 1994, and basically just says that firearms and weapons are not allowed on school, and then it has some procedural pieces that by statute have to be in there for what happens if that happens. And C7, it's about student attendance, and basically says, defines truancy, and that a student, must attend school between the ages of 6 and 16. And then after 16, they have to have a parent, if they're going to unenroll. But basically defines what an excused absence is also. C8 is pupil privacy rights. Again, this is around the pupil privacy rights amendment and some Vermont state laws, and just basically says that we have to respect and carry out privacy of our students. F1 is travel reimbursement. Just what we are saying is that we will follow the per diem mileage basis for should that adjust on a yearly basis for our employees that have to travel with their own cars. And then F23 is on capitalization of assets, and basically that we will maintain a schedule of our assets, and so that we're always know where they are and any construction that's going to go on, and that we basically are looking at those life expectancies for those assets. And then F24 is prevention of a conflict of interest in procurement. This is not a requirement, but this is one that, and I'm sorry, F23 also was not a requirement, but recommended. These are SHU recommended policies that the AOE is mandating that we have. And basically the procurement, prevention of conflict of interest in procurement is that we follow the federal guidelines for how we purchase things through grant funds. And that we follow the guidelines of procurement, so we don't buy $10,000 hammers. That was a lot, I know.
If these policies, I have a quick question. If these policies were put forth by the SU, like if I have some concerns about some of the language or stuff that I think is missing, is it worth me noting that? Or would it only be written by the policy committee, so it's not worth me mentioning anything that I think is missing or any concerns?
Here's what I would say. The goal, we've had some discussion about all the shortcuts we've taken in past years, get policies passed, and we get called on it at the high school. The goal has been to make certain that all policies are consistent. So we have strongly encouraged up and down votes by the individual boards. You're not compelled to do that, but oh God, please, let's try. If there are problems, and you think they're showstopper problems, I would encourage you to vote against the policy in question and ask it to be referred back to the policy committee. If it's, if it's sort of niggling concern about sloppy wording or imprecise language or some of the AOE's formulations, and they create a lot of these, I'll defer to you to But if we need to amend it, we need to have the policy committee amend it. We need to send it back to the policy committee for amendment. So if you see one you think is sufficiently lacking that we should do that, I would.
I wouldn't say sufficiently. There was just an ADA disclaimer that I thought should be included with like the drug testing, because you're asking people potentially about like their past drug use, which could technically be considered a medical condition because former addiction's a protected class. And so that just wasn't mentioned. And then for the electronic communications between employee and students, I just noticed that there wasn't language about like a pre-existing personal relationship that wasn't familiar. So that was something else I noticed, and just because it's small towns, like I was friends with teachers when I was in high school or in elementary school, my friends' parents. And so just some of the limiting language there and repercussions, it narrowly defined who you could have certain kinds of communication with to just family. So I wouldn't call that a showstopper, but it was just something that I noticed.
Jack, if I can.
Yeah.
Could we potentially, if we were to pass something, because we're gonna have policy as a standing committee where we're constantly reviewing, that if there was something that we passed, we could get it on our docket to review and have it come back and amend and come back up again. Again, if there wasn't something, Chris, as you're saying, egregious that we're totally missing. Yeah.
It was just, there's an ADA
jeopardy.
disclaimer. Yeah, so it's just like an ADA disclaimer. And then just personally, because our communities are so small, again, I just felt that like the limitations on who staff could have certain kinds of contact with, just limiting it to family, I just felt like was
I think a referral, I think passing it, but referring those for potential amendments is probably a good process.
Because it would sound like what you're talking about, Krista, would be very quick amendments that we could probably.
Absolutely, yes.
And some of these policies have not been updated in many years, and so when they were updated by, you know, the School Board Association and or the AOE type of thing, we might not have picked them up, and so even the newer ones are maybe old and are missing like the ADA piece because they're not 20 years old, they're 10 years old.
Actually, if I'm going to bet who's got the best lawyer, the VSBA or this board, I'm going to bet on us. But that's just.
And then just the last thing that I wanted to note was that the definition of workplace was just limited to physical workplaces and wasn't like updated to include this idea of potential like remote work.
Would you send those notes to Andy and CC me, because and actually CC Cheryl, because you're on the policy committee too, right? Or are you?
Charlie is.
Charlie, and to Charlie,
Yeah.
because I think those are all excellent. So I'm entertaining a motion to approve them in bulk, if you will. So if anybody would like to raise their hand to that effect. There is my hand raiser. Thank you, Lynn. And I think the Westminster board needs a similar hand raiser.
All right, there's Karen.
Oh, we got one, and we got a second from Charlie, by the way.
Right.
All right. Do we have further discussion on that motion? Are you resting your hand, or are you raising your hand there, Hardy? I can't quite tell because it's very.
He's resting.
He's resting.
He's resting.
Okay. Don't want to put anybody on the spot. Then let's call the roll, shall we? I'm going to do the folks remotely first. Charlie, what say you?
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Krista.
Aye.
Hardy.
Aye.
And Elise, if you are there.
Aye.
Great. And am I missing anyone on the line? I really can't see that screen. Then we'll go from my furthest left around the horn. What say you?
This is Cheryl, aye.
Aye.
I will say aye, and that seems to be a unanimous. So we have done that. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, T, sorry.
That's
I said furthest left, and then we didn't do that, so my apologies. All right, so on to item Esther, actually, let's do the quick town meeting thing, because it's on May 24th. We did get the warning, it's been posted. I've sent a note to the Athenian and to the Grafton News. I've not sent one to Westminster, and we probably should do that. What's the publishing date for the Gazette? Are we
It's
gonna?
around the 25th. Charlie would know better than I.
Charlie, what's the publishing date for the Gazette?
I think it's early May. I'm not sure exactly what date,
Okay.
but after the town meeting.
Right, we should get together to make sure that, people are alerted to the fact that there is this meeting, and what it summarizes. I wrote about a one paragraph thing, which I would defer to you and or the Westminster reps to craft a note to voters. I think people always like to know what it is they're being asked to vote for, and why they need to destroy a perfectly lovely Tuesday evening to go to sit in the hall.
Jack, as just a point of order, also on the Westminster agenda tonight, it refers to town meeting, which is this Saturday. And I would just say to the general public, the voters in Westminster, that we'd love to see you there. It's the first time that the vote for the school budget will be brought back to town meeting, and we just welcome participation from Westminster voters.
I did see that May 24th and was confused about that.
The meeting starts at 10 in the morning. It will be at the Westminster Institute in Westminster, outdoors. The town school district report is the third item on the agenda. First is the either fire district or select board. It's one of the two, I'm not remembering right now. But we anticipate discussion of the school budget, and the vote for that would come probably midday to early afternoon.
All right, and again, that would be an opportunity to encourage people to be there for the May 24th thing, because we need their vote on that matter.
Okay, there's a fundraiser for the school that day as well at town meeting.
Okay, so the Westminster
At
town.
the Westminster.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Health for food, yes.
What time is the town meeting, Jack? Grafton on the 24th?
The 24th is, we have it posted at 7 p.m. It's an evening thing, and I'm pledging that we'll be more efficient than we are tonight.
And that's in Grafton Elementary.
That'll be the Grafton Elementary, but that means Grafton, Athens, Westminster, all come. And those people that have never been to the Grafton Elementary School from Westminster, welcome. It's a cute little school, you'll like it. So with that, we have, let's see, the Esther update, we've got, okay.
We've got everything.
All right, resignations, appointments.
Executive session, I would like to.
You want to add an executive session as well? Oh, okay, I guess I wasn't clear on that. So we're combining those items, and that means that the rest of this meeting will be an executive session. So what we will do for the folks at FACT TV is and I'm going to, without objection, have director's comments now, unless there's a reason not to. So I'm going to start with Charlie. Any comments for this evening?
No, thanks, not right now. No.
Karen? All right. Kristen?
Is that a no, Karen?
I said no. Yeah, I didn't get my thing out.
And it's a silent comment with a shook head. Krista?
I just wanted to reiterate how much I enjoy working with you all. And even though the conversation at the beginning was long about the assessment test, I think it's just really special that our board has the input to really care about students and not just test scores. And I'm just always touched by that. So I'm really thrilled to be working with you all.
Thank you. Hardy?
No, I have none tonight.
All right. Expect a phone call, by the way, in the next day or so, Hardy. Elise, are you still, why can't I see Elise on the screen?
I'm still here. I have no comment though. Thank you.
All right, very good. let's try this again, from my furthest left.
We're in the home stretch of the school year right now, and I just want to thank the schools so much for all they've done, especially the past 2 years, because it has been a hard time, and I think that they've worked really hard, and the kids always seem really happy, and I just think the schools are doing so well to support our kids.
Thank you. Why don't we go, Cheryl?
I don't think I have anything more to add right now. Thank you.
All right. And Lynn?
Nothing more to add.
Because I can't help myself. I just want to thank everybody that's, this is a wonderful set of boards. I'm going to be crushed when they're split up come July 1st. I am delighted that we're having encounters with the voters, both in Westminster and at Westminster later. It's been a long time since we've had the kind of conversations we've had about school, and it's important for engagement. And I look forward to that. I really do beg people to show up because some of the stuff is structurally very important in terms of where we go from here. So come meet with us, tell us what's going on. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to entertain a motion for us to go into executive session for 2 items. Presumably that motion will say on a personnel matter and on a legal matter.
I so move. We get there for a personal matter and a legal matter.
All right.
And the languages and the premature disclosure of which, how does that go?
That plus the word et cetera should cover it. Yeah. Let's then have our friends at Fact TV say goodnight, and we're inviting the administration to participate and such staff as
we do anticipate action to be reported out, so Fact TV might want to wait in the waiting room.
And then you'll have that opportunity, Fact TV, if you'd like. With that, we are in public session. So let's do these in order. Cheryl, you want to lead the role of things we got to do?
What I might do is offer a resolution related to changes in personnel, and I can list each of the names and their positions in one motion, if that works for you.
I like it.
We all like that. So the first part of this motion is that we move to accept the resignation of an elementary school teacher at the Westminster School, Megan McCarthy. The second part of the resolution is to approve a 1 day of uncompensated leave for an elementary teacher at the Westminster School, Dina Weiss-Tisman. Third is to accept the resignation of the school nurse at the Westminster School, Megan Rink. Next is to accept the resignation of the head of maintenance at the Westminster School, Wade Kemp. Next is to accept the appointment, approve the proposed appointment of an elementary teacher at the Westminster School, Fallon Van Coor. Next is to accept and approve the appointment of a new head of maintenance at the Westminster School, Jeff Potter. And finally is to accept the resignation of the physical education teacher at the Grafton School, Wendy Johnson, with regret. That's the motion.
Any suggested amendments or any conversation about this? Hearing none, let's do the roll. Charlie, what say you?
Aye. In favor.
Karen? Thank you.
Aye.
Krista?
Hi.
Hardy? Elise?
Aye.
Excellent. Starting around the horn.
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Lynn, thank you. And I'll add just so it's unanimous. So item 1?
All right.
All right.
And the second is to entertain a motion to approve in concept the consideration of two proposals for congressionally directed funding, the titles of which are nature-based, place-based, and work-based learning and community engagement. A second proposal for possible congressionally directed funding is early learning and childcare community center in Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union. Those are two proposals that we would like as two boards to express our endorsement of in concept.
And just for clarification, a confirming vote by both boards will have to take separately because it'll be Tuesday, and that they will generate two sets of letters signed by Cheryl and myself on behalf of the two boards. One letter in support of the early ed proposal, and one for this nature-based learning strategy program.
Nature-based, community-oriented, place-based.
Well, you'll tell me, you'll write this so that I'll know what we're approving. And that's, so again, we'll look for one vote from the WNUESD and one from the Westminster School District Board, and that will generate 4 letters, just so we're all clear of what's happening. So with that, why don't we start with the Westminster folks for a change?
All right, I will poll the Westminster folks. Charlie?
Yep, in favor.
Karen?
Yes, in favor.
Thank you. Teen?
Yes.
And I am in favor as well. Did I miss anybody?
Don't believe you did. Now we're going to do the same thing. This time we'll do it with the folks in the room. Lynn, what say you?
In favor.
What say you, Krista?
In favor.
Artie?
In favor.
Elise?
Yes, in favor.
I will add my name in favor, and so we have it done. Thank you all. I think that's the conclusion of all business we have before us, unless there's something else. Then I guess I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Date of the next meeting is, help me out, second Thursday of May, which is 12th. The 12th, thank you.
I know I'll be out of town on that date.
All right.
And I wonder whether we might consider only having one meeting that month.
I have no.
That's a great idea.
Well, I'm just temperamentally really in favor of less meetings, but
No, I want to have a meeting.
I
want a meeting.
I know that we're really entertaining people to hang out with, but if you have, is there anything you anticipate that's going to require that?
I do not.
All right, then the 4th.
That'd be the 26th.
4th is the 26th. So then I will anticipate that we'll meet again on the 26th of May, and that will be at the Grafton Elementary School building at 6 p.m. Unless there is an objection by anybody. Seeing none, I hope. Krista, do you have an objection?
I was just gonna let you know that I have like a trial that day, so I don't anticipate it going that late, but I may be late. I will let you all know. Just wanted to let you all know now.
We'll move the meeting later. Just let me know so we can adjust it accordingly. How's that?
Okay.
All right, maybe we'll serve pizza. With that, I did hear a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
All those in favor, stand up and leave.